Welcome back, Estelden here. Metro Exodus just came out on Steam, and while it should have been exciting to some people, not many gamers seem to care, and it's really just reminded people how quickly their life slips away. I mean, it is ridiculous that it's been a year already. The thing to remember firstly is that Metro Exodus is not some 10 out of 10 classic. It's a decent shooter, it's got some nice open world elements that mix it up, it's a good game, but when it went exclusive to Epic, most people were thinking about having to wait a year, not about rushing out to download some Epic launcher because this is apparently a must-play. This past year, with all of the different exclusives like Borderlands 3, Metro, and Shenmue 3 have really only achieved one thing. They've given people a new perspective in realising that it's okay to wait before playing a game. It'll be cheaper, it'll be patched, all the DLC nonsense, the updates, they'll be all out, and you can play the complete product instead. The biggest shame with these exclusives is that Epic didn't grab bigger games like the Call of Duties of the world, because it actually might have shaken up the schedule for people who always buy them every single year, get them to wait and then realise, what the hell am I doing? And get them to actually avoid them for once. There's no chance of that happening though, that would just be too unrealistic. So Epic has surely got enough data from their strategy and experiment to know if this is working or not, right? I mean, if people haven't downloaded their launcher and aren't giving it a fair shot right now, is yet another game that people are mildly interested in but aren't determined to play really going to then bring in that interest? Probably not, and I have to imagine this is some sort of long-term strategy that ends up convincing developers that they should go exclusively Epic on their own for a period of time to help them get their higher cut. It's not a bad idea, but Epic are a long way off anything like that happening, even if the devs who do sign up with them toe the line and then talk about an apparent great relationship with them when they talk to the public. The perfect solution to all of this would be some sort of service that's quite similar to Discord, that allows developers to sell their game on a launcher that isn't attached to a specific one company like Valve or Epic, but still gives them a good delivery system with their games. It would be so nice to be able to go to a developer's website whose games I really enjoy, purchase the games from them knowing that they will be getting most if not all of the money, and then being able to play it on a hassle-free launcher. I say launcher because realistically, I just know that DRM-free is never going to happen. You even look at GOG, who are having trouble these days growing their library, and I think with the way that GOG Galaxy is going, the DRM-free stuff is eventually going to be strictly for old games, or, dare I say it, some sort of paid DLC add-on from the publishers who've then decided that they've sold as much as they can and they still want to milk a little bit extra. But I am curious as to how this is all going to affect middle-of-the-road games going forward. The games most people are curious about, but are on the fence about either waiting for a sale or buying at full price to be part of the release hype. There's something to be said about the release hype. I know there's a lot of people who always say to wait and that there's no rush. There can be a lot of fun about being part of something new and exciting, which sadly publishers do exploit sometimes. A good example is Sekiro. As amazing as it was, I do feel like if I played it a year later, I might have missed out on a lot. In the back of your mind, you know the game has been data mined to death, and every single secret has been discovered by that point. You've probably been spoiled at some point by a friend, maybe by a YouTube comment, or maybe even me now telling you about the Headless Ape, one of my favourite moments in gaming of 2019. Being a part of something like that, seeing where people are up to and discovering everything at the same time as everyone else can just be really awesome. The best part is you could be playing the best game of all time that's just waiting to be discovered. Now you can of course get that out of a game that's a year old too, but some of that mystery can kind of be gone, and while it's fine when it's something like Red Dead Redemption 2 that people are going to be looking to play regardless of whether it's a 1 month wait or a 12-month wait, it's the smaller games that suffer and can be left behind. The problem really is that the conversation about Metro Exodus, it's not about if there's a potentially great game there to be played, it's instead just brought up the Epic Store conversation again. No one seems to give a toss about the actual game, so it's the studios that are continuing to suffer from going exclusive. As more games come out that people want to be involved with on release, the further a game like Metro gets put on the back burner. Who is going to want to rush out and play it on Steam when games like Doom Eternal are just around the corner? People are going to continue to wait, and as time goes on, a lot of the people on the fence will simply never play it at all and it will end up forgotten. I think it puts a stain on long-term franchises also, because it puts a complete lack of urgency on playing a new game in a series. Let's say Metro First Light comes out one day. Not a real game, just a pathetic name I came up with. Are people going to be excited? While they'll remember that title they skipped out on and never got around to ages ago, and even if the new one is on Steam day one, unless it's the best game ever, most of those people who dropped off probably aren't coming back anytime soon. Publishers have talked about and shown that release day sales are what they care about most, and this exclusivity debacle has killed that for a lot of the PC audience. I've been looking at the list of Epic exclusive games, and it does get worse the more you look. Here are some of the games that are coming to the Epic Store in the future. You've got Solar Ash Kingdom, Industries of Titan, and After Party. Now I don't know about you, but I don't know many people who would be aware of these games unless they went looking for them. So how are these games ever going to build an audience or help their studios to gain a following? I mean, the only way is if Epic makes them their free game of the month. Now I can't paint everyone with the same brush, as there are some people who will genuinely wait for a Steam release or a GOG release or whatever it might be, and they'll buy it from that store as soon as it's out. Does that send the right message though? Because if enough people do that, then it will support developers in the future who look to release on Epic only first at their own accord. If they can look at the numbers and decide, right, if we release on Epic, we get as many people as we can and as much money for our studio as we can, then we release on Steam later, and we'll get all of those people who are going to buy it from that store no matter what. So the problem in that scenario is the only people who lose out are the consumers who have to wait longer for a finished game and miss out on the release day fun. So we're probably fortunate that it's not as simple as that. Now as we move forward, people have started getting nervous when a third-party game nears its release. People used to be excited, but now there's always that lingering feeling of, will this be the next Epic game and I'll miss out? It's certainly in the back of people's minds. There's a few like that seem obvious. For example, Kingdom Come Deliverance is currently free on Epic Store, and it was partially a Deep Silver game, publisher who we all know has embraced the Epic Store. From what we know, they'll be releasing a new Saints Row and Dead Island 2 in the near future, the latter of which feels like the next Duke Nukem Forever with all of these development issues, but both of those you would think are prime candidates for an Epic exclusive launch. Dying Light 2 is another I worry about. It looks like the perfect game for Epic to go after, and I worry about the state of the franchise if it becomes another victim of PC gamers simply wanting choice on where to play their games. As time moves on, I do think a lot of people have moved on from the Epic vs Steam narrative because it's become clear that this isn't what it's really about. We see Microsoft releasing their games on Steam nowadays, and even Sony being open to PC ports, so with all of the choice being offered to us, Epic's approach just feels like they're trying to shove a square peg into a round hole, which is pretty much how I feel when they constantly advertise Fortnite to me on YouTube. So what this is all really about is Epic trying to corner the market at a time where they feel Steam is vulnerable. With the fall of AAA gaming in the eyes of gamers who play a large variety of games, rather than maybe just one big game that sets them up for the next 6 months, it's meant that there's a lot of money to be made if you're the one selling a massive amount of indie games, even if you're only selling a few 100,000 copies of each of them. But that's just it. You want to be selling all of them to really make a fortune, which is what Epic's long con is. They want to be the studio the indies go to so that in the future, when the big publishers like Activision, Ubisoft are potentially off Steam completely, they're the ones who already have the indies and Steam are left picking up the scraps. They know how loyal people have been to Steam, so if they have the same kind of loyalty themselves from the next generation of gamers, they know they'll have pretty much a monopoly for a period of about 10 years. And I can tell you right now, if that were to happen, the whole 12% cut stuff would be thrown out the window while Epic recuperate and ensure they profit from the money they've already spent on all of the exclusives. Now there's certainly plenty of drama when it comes to the people who continue to hate Epic and those who belittle those people and call them babies who can't handle installing another launcher, but I don't think that's important at all. My focus and my concern is on indie games and medium-sized games going forward. The last thing I want to see is a PC crash for smaller games, all in the name of Epic trying to make a savvy business move. That is not fair on the medium. A solution needs to be found quickly, a loophole to Epic's nonsense. If Epic want to ensure that every game under the sun isn't on Steam, then fine. I really don't care if that's what they want to do with their money. But what people want is a solution that feels practical and enhances their gaming experience, not something that brings about the tedium. Epic's only pioneering move here is recognizing that indie gaming going forward is probably not sustainable with Steam's large cut if we want to see smaller and smaller teams do something really ambitious. That mindset needs to be taken, but put into something more than Tim Sweeney getting richer and his 10-cent buddies controlling the whole Western games market. Indies need to come together to make this happen. The storefronts do not care about them as individuals, but only as one collective group. If they can take Epic's money but then also have a more neutral platform to release their games on, something that's basically freeware, but then perhaps the bigger of those indie studio devs then invest in it, and then it could really help gaming as a whole. Maybe they could even put some of their Epic money towards it. Though, I gotta be honest, that sounds too much like a fairy tale ending. Gamers are still angry at the situation overall. There's a reason reports are coming out that say PC gaming spending is going down. The motivation to buy those smaller games just isn't there right now thanks to Epic. People are waiting for the shenanigans to end. But Epic seems determined to carry this on into 2020, so sadly the cycle might continue for a while yet. Xbox Game Pass opens up other avenues as well. Microsoft have made it pretty clear that they don't care about having exclusives on their platform anymore. It's about reaching as many people as possible and building that goodwill. If Game Pass catches on as a successful business model on PC, it might not be long before one of Valve or Epic decides to be the first to jump in and offer something similar. It would certainly raise the stakes and perhaps be the edge that Valve needs to ensure they continue to stay on top. They do have Half-Life Alyx coming out, so there's always that possibility that a pushback into development could see them having another Half-Life game exclusive be part of some sort of Steam pass that gets you access to their games, plus a whole bunch of indie titles. If Microsoft's success is anything to go by, I think it's only a matter of time. Microsoft are trying to push back into the PC space, but their store is still garbage. And with their priority still on the Xbox consoles, there is still time to beat them at their own game, especially when we don't know yet if their upcoming exclusives will actually be any good. We basically entered 2020 with more nonsense to contend with. It's a bit like dodging laser beams these days, where there's always some monetization scheme you've got to be wary of, unfinished games being shoved down people's throats, and the actual good games needing all the support they can get to ensure those studios survive and can continue to sustain that. Store exclusivity just adds to that long list, and indies need to start looking long term. Taking Epic money and doing nothing else is a bit like drinking out of the devil's cup at the moment. The Metro series finds itself in trouble, a forgotten, bashed series that gamers only associate with the debacle of last year, and not much else at this point. Things can only get better when smaller studios find a better solution to keeping most of the sales money, and I will happily support them when they do. Thanks again guys, and I'll see you again.